Hey everybody, and welcome to Modern Thirst. We're doing a epic little peated Scotch line here, set up by our very own Mr. Wes Jolly. How are you guys doing?
Doing well, Bill.
Living my best life.
Wes, why don't you tell us what you got for us here?
So tonight I asked Bill and Timothy to pull a Scotch, a peated Scotch or some type of Scotch, just kind of a baseline for them. And I have two peated Scotches we're going to taste. There is something similar about them. I won't get into that right now, but we'll try to see if we can pick it out a little bit here. These are whiskeys that the Proper Pour Whiskey Club has tasted in November and rated, and I've tasted them a couple times, and I thought it'd be a good little exercise to have the group taste these.
Yeah. Nice. So I guess we all kind of have some warm-up drams here. What do you guys got in front of you?
I have kind of switching around a little bit, but I just poured Glenlivet 15. And then I had the Great King before that from Compass Box.
Ooh.
I am in the peated family with Coila Distiller's Edition from 2015. It has a Muscatel sherry wine finish on that, so I thought that would be a good warm-up dram.
I'm starting off. I got to work my way into the peat, so I'm starting off with the Tomatin Quattro number 4. That's the PX sherry finished 12-year. So it's not peated, but then I'm going to move on to the Ardbeg Anoa, and I've got the. Let's see, where do I have that? Ardbeg. I'm sorry, Ugadal, not Anoa, which I believe Wes gave me. And then I've got the Lefroy 10-year cast strength that I'll be moving to. So I'm moving into the Peters. I'll be sucking down some Peters.
I'm
going to get myself in trouble tonight. All right, Wes, what do we need to know?
What you need to know is they're both peated. They are from actually different regions of Scotland. Most of the time you think of Isla. They're not both Isla whiskeys. There is a similar dynamic to them. I think they're both peated around the same range overall, and I would say that they're both, I would say, well done drams. And I want to see what two guys who aren't necessarily maybe the most peated guys, see what you pick up on these. And if you can get past the smoke, get past the peat, and what kind of what you get on the nose on those. I'm really curious. I got my notes from when we taste them with the club and stuff, and I've got some of our scores of what we gave them. So I'm just kind of looking general thoughts on these. Which one do you prefer over the other one? And just get your general impressions. So if you want to start with, we got 1A and 1B. They're blind for these two guys. Obviously, I know what they are, but if you want to start on the nosing of 1A and just kind of see what you're getting.
Smell that peat.
Oh, man.
And before we taste them, we'll have you, you can look at the color of them and see if you notice any difference in the color between the two. And then we'll kind of nose both of them and just see what you're picking up on the nose, and then we'll jump into the palate.
Yeah.
So, Wes, question, Mr. Pete. When we're pouring peated scotches, is it best to let them rest in the glass for a while beforehand? And if so, what does that do for you?
I would say it's always good to let any whiskey rest in the glass for a little bit. A lot of people will say a minute per year and stuff. For these, I poured them probably 25 minutes ago. I'll usually put some kind of topper on there, though, to try to keep some of the nosing in there, especially on these peated ones, to get that to begin with. But I definitely say it's worth letting them sit a little bit.
Well, just based on the nose, there's a big difference between A and B.
There's a pretty substantial difference between color between A and B as well.
I can't. I've got a dark thing sitting behind the glass. For me, B is a lot darker.
Yeah, no, it is. There's
Okay,
B.
yeah. Let's see. There's B, and there's A. Modern Thirst glass, proper pour. Definitely differs in the color for those who are watching this later on them.
There we go.
Yeah, quite dark on the B sample.
A little light to me there. I feel like I'm in the dark over here.
All right.
So on A, what are you picking up on it? I mean, do you get anything beyond the peat or the smokiness?
I get like a yeah. There's something kind of dark on there, like something chewy to me, almost molasses like. Real sweet.
To me, it's kind of like it's kind of like a raisin. It's a little raisin, and then some pear, a little bit of honey.
Yeah, I was gonna say the first thing I thought I got was honeysuckle with like a little bit of that kind of floral note to it.
Sure.
I think I need to actually pour my glass a little powder to get a little bit more out of that.
Man. So raisin note, honeysuckle, you said.
Almost raisin bread more than molasses, I think, like a cinnamon raisin bread or something.
I can see that a little bit. I'm gonna jump in with some of my notes, some of my thoughts on them after we've gone to B. So I want us to bounce back and forth.
Yeah, no, totally.
And get what you're thinking, what you're picking up on B. Are there any similarities or not?
What is that?
B, I get. There's a barrel finish on B, not a barrel finish, but there's a different type of barrel used in B, I think, like a sherry or a port or something, or red wine.
Okay.
More in that sherry realm, I think.
Yeah,
something
no,
very floral, very sweet, almost a candy note to B. Like if this one is raisins, this one is like maraschino cherries or red cherries.
Okay.
Cherries Jubilee.
There's a medicinal, like a medicinal iodine mineral note in there too. It's kind of in the background. It's not super forward, but it's back there.
For me, B is right up my alley in terms of what I like in a nose of a peated whiskey.
On my notes that I had before, and I'm just confirming them now on A, the first one we did, I get a little bit of iodine in that one, a little bit of that medicinal. In A, I get an underlying the peat. I get, and I don't know, when you say it, someone will go, "Oh yeah, I get that." I pick up a little like raspberry jam on A. Some red fruits. And almost a raspberry type note.
I'm going to pour my two control or other ones because I want to compare side to side. I'm going to cheat.
A little touch of char on A. On B, to me, I definitely like B. I think B is a little bit stronger on the nose. I definitely would give the nod. I think they're little mustiness on B. I wrote red fruits again, a little bit funkier on the nose, and I put like wine gummies, like red wine gummies.
What kind of gummies you're talking about? So I would, if I had to explain these just based solely on the nose, I would guess that one uses ex-bourbon barrels, 1A, and B uses sherry or something like that. And that would be one of the major differences.
I would say they both use ex-bourbon barrels.
But also,
And they both use ex-bourbon barrels, but also something else. Both of
was
them.
it the same something else for both of them?
It is actually the same something else.
Oh,
Wow.
shit.
So it's just
Well.
longer then, yes?
Most
Man.
likely longer. So some
So
similar
I learned this last week that there's two types of aging when it comes to a barrel. You can, if it says finished in, it's sat for a minimum of 6 months in that barrel, but then there's also aged in. So you could have an Isla Whiskey aged in a port cast, or you could have an Isla Whiskey finished in a port cast.
or you can have it matured in. And sometimes matured means
wow,
the entire time. Sometimes they will put on there how long. Usually when you get over, most of the time I've seen over 18 months, they start saying matured in because they figure that's more than a finish.
Sure.
But let's go ahead and dive into A on the palate after you've gone back and forth between them and see what you're.
Ooh, wow.
Oh, that is strong, Pete.
Getting some burnt toast, some more of that honey. It's like biscuity though too. Man. And then that medicinal note that you were talking about, Wes, that you picked up, that comes through like mid palate.
Yeah, I get the iodine. It's kind of more, to me, it's kind of like it's like heavily charcoal filtered. I know that's the peat, but like I was just tasting it next to the Lefroy 10-year. It's a very different kind of peat. That, to me, the Lefroy is more an earthy peat, and this is more a burnt charcoal peat. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
One of the notes I wrote on this one, I don't know if you're picking it up, but one of my tasting notes on this was a sooty marshmallow.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've got one that's a little bit burnt or a little bit of the fire soot on it, and I get that in this, but also I still get some of those red fruits coming through.
That's Boy Scouts right there. Tip the marshmallow. Oh crap! Fell into the fireplace. Man.
What would you say
And
about
now, okay,
on that one?
Man, so now that I've tried some of it and then going back in, more of that, it's more like green apple now and pear, and a little bit of raisin. Oh, man,
I feel like that iodine note has kicked in for me after tasting it. A little bit stronger, but I'm kind of with you. There's something fruitier, like fresher coming out of it now on the nose.
Yeah,
Kind of green and fresh. Yeah, I would kind of go more towards a grass and green apple.
sure.
Maybe even a hint of pine or something, but
What would you think the ABV between when we taste the second one? I'll ask you on that one too. I'll ask you which one you think is higher, but just as a starting gauge, where would you put this one?
I'd put this at 92.
Yeah, I would say somewhere 90, 95. Not probably closer to 95.
Okay. Ding, ding, ding on the 92.
Oh,
That is exactly, that is 46%
nice.
on this one. Now I'll transition over to B after you've gotten your palate warmed up a little bit with
Do a little mineral water.
A there and see what you're picking up there. And be thinking in your mind, what would you score these on a 100-point scale when you're done?
Oh man.
Comparatively between each other. I'm just curious to see, because I have some numbers of what Whiskey Base has scored them, what our club scored them.
Oh, that is fruity.
Oh my goodness.
I love 2.
2 is. Oh man, that is an explosion of fruit.
It's right up my alley. If it were, I think Wes, we've talked about this before. I really love, one of the things that drew me to Scotch was the sherry aging, and to me, this tastes like a sherried Scotch. I really like it. It is bright fruits on the nose, same on the palate, bright red cherries.
I would almost say
Raspberry.
Oh man, I got that raspberry jam, but I would almost say maybe a tawny port. Like
it could be, yeah. It's definitely some sort of a sweet fortified wine.
It's so fruity, and that smoke, the earthiness, and the peatiness are all kind of like backseat now.
It really did. It really, it's really the flavors, the underlying flavors have really kind of overtaken the peat on the palate here.
Mm.
It's chewy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wrote viscous palate on the finish. You get a little bit of smokiness. I get a spice red fruit. Definitely a little bit more going on, I think.
If you could slow cook a cherry cobbler in a barbecue smoker, this is what it would be. This is good. I love that. Mm. That's really good
description.
And I would score that about a 90 or so. But again, there's a reason why I never ever scored Scotches. I don't have all the experience to draw from on it. So,
Bill, you said you would score that a 90.
Mm-hmm.
What would you score the first one in comparison?
So again, we have to keep in mind that when I score Scotch, it's more on the lines of whether I like it or not. It's not whether it's a good representative of its style or what it is, because I think there's a big difference when you're scoring a whiskey. Is it your personal cup of tea, or is it a really well done whatever kind of whiskey it is? And that's why I never scored a Scotch, and I don't review Scotches, never did, because I can't tell you if it's good, if it's very representative of its style. But I would put it at like an 86 for me, just in terms of how it fits my palate. And B, it would be a 90 easily. I love B.
86 and a 90. What are you thinking, Timothy?
Let me go back to this one really quick. Let me sip on this one.
A has gotten better every time I've gone back to it, though.
Oh my God.
It's a little more bitter to me.
So going back to A now, it reminds me of like a really big hefty breakfast. So I really want to have this with like, I don't know, I guess we could go English breakfast, because that would go awesome with it. I would say this one's an 88 for me. And this one's like a 93, 94.
Okay. So both of you pick B as your favorite of the two.
I do.
That was my favorite of the two. It was the Proper Pour Whiskey Club's favorite of the two. Wanted to see if you can hone down a little bit. You talked about the finish. You talked about ruby port, Timothy. Bill, you mentioned a little bit of sherry. I will tell you that the finishing barrels are from New Zealand. See if that will narrow you down to what you think it may be.
It could be a port, because they've done some. Probably wouldn't be a tawny. Well, it actually might be a tawny port. Australia and New Zealand do a tawny port. They also do a pair of sherry a lot there. And they do a ton of red wine, so it could easily.
And they
easily
also do. They also do Sauv Blancs a lot.
It could easily be a Syrah. I think it's probably ex-bourbon and Syrah or something like that. Just not based on taste, solely based on the fact that it comes out of New Zealand. Or Shiraz even.
Are these both the same finish?
Yep.
And
both,
are they finished or aged?
They are finished. One, I know, is 3 years in the finish barrel, so they call it matured. The other one there is no numbers on it, but I heard around the same thing, 2 to 3 years. I think it's less just because of the coloring on it.
Well, because I know we got some tawny port casks out of Australia recently. I know they do make some port in that region, Australia, New Zealand area. We've looked at manifest too of what we can get in from over there for 4-gate. But my guess is this is probably a red wine then, and not a fortified wine, just simply because of the location. So that's not based on any tasting notes or anything like that.
So before I reveal them to you and we talk about them a little bit more, I'll tell you some of the scores because you guys gave your scores. We both gave B, the nod. Our group, and both of these were tasted in November of 2020, and they were in a tasting of 6 peated whiskeys, and they finished number 1 and number 2. That's why I picked them.
Wow.
The first one, our A, scored from our group an 88.5 overall. I gave it an 87.5. And if you look at Whiskey Base, which has 400 reviews of it, they gave it an 87.39. So I would say everyone's pretty much in that 87, 88 range on A. B was our winner of the group, and we gave it a 90. And the Whiskey Base gave an 88.3. That was our number 16 whiskey of the year out of 165 whiskeys we tasted in the club.
Nice.
That one came in number 16. Just to give you an example of the scores to get to that 90, it got a 90, a 96.5, which is up there where Timothy is, an 89.5, an 89.5, 91.5, 92, 90, and one person just didn't like the peat of this one, gave it an 80. So you got one outlier in there, but a lot of 90s, high 96.5. So they are both finished in Pinot Noir cask from New Zealand.
Wow. Okay.
And the first one is an Isla Whiskey, which is non-age stated, and it is...
Oh, get the heck out.
The Ardbeg.
Is that just the black or is that the committee release?
This is not the committee release. This is the 46%, what you got, Timothy. 46% on this one. The committee release we like better. The committee release actually beat the next one.
Okay.
The committee release, I think, is a little right around 50%.
Got it.
This one
actually it's 51. It's 51 point something.
Yeah, it's not high. It's not as high as some of theirs. But the black here, the standard release scored a little bit lower. This is their 20th anniversary of that. They don't tell the age on it. Most people think it's younger Ardbeg, which is thin finished in Pinot Noir. So maybe 8 to 10 years old, couple years in Pinot Noir, a lot lower on the color of the other one. So I think it's probably maybe 18 months in Pinot Noir cask. So that's your first one. So Bill, that's why when you said you got the Ugadal out there, I think it'd be interesting to pull that out and taste it beside it, because that's my favorite Ardbeg, actually.
I just did, as a matter of fact.
And the next
one
one
is much more full flavored, to be honest.
Which one?
The Ugadal.
Oh yeah, I agree too.
And it's not so much that one is better than the other one. I think this one would be more heat forward, 1A. The black and Ugadal, you can really taste I think it's sherry. Is that right?
Yes, it is sherry.
Yeah, in the Ugadal, I think it's more barrel forward. That's really the main difference. And then proof, obviously, that Ugadal is.
Revisit on the second one, 1B. What do you think the proof is on that one?
I would say around 100 proof.
Okay.
98, 100.
Yeah,
it might be low, but it drinks.
I'm gonna say it's I would say it's right around 100 as well.
106.2 cast strength. And this one, so the first one is Isla. The second one of our club members went out and bought it right after we tasted it, It's a little bit more difficult to find. It is from Campbelltown.
I thought so.
It is a long row.
Wow.
Red Pinot Noir cast 11 years, 8 years in ex-bourbon, 3
Wow.
years in Pinot Noir from New Zealand. Long Row every year does a limited edition of their peated whiskey
Okay.
that they do it's always labeled Long Row Red. They've done Cabernet Sauvignon, they've done Pinot Noir, they've done a lot of different red wine.
Show us that bottle again, Wes. We got you solo here, so we can
So
see.
is this
Wow.
is this one of those special releases?
Yes.
Man,
It's-
why you got to do me like that, Wes?
It is, you can still find some of them. It's hard to
Okay.
find.
Not in Kentucky.
Uh-huh.
We don't
Hard to
get
find.
them newfangled Scotch whiskeys here.
If you can find it, I would grab a bottle.
I will.
Both of these whiskeys are in the same price range. The Ardbeg Black is a little bit higher now than it used to be. That's probably around 110.
Okay.
The Long Row Red, the 11-year-old, I would say you can probably find around 120, 125.
Oh, wow,
but it
okay.
is it's a really nice whiskey. Your scores are, Bill, when you were talking about scoring scotches, you were right in there with the group on those, and both of you kind of picked out which one you think was the better between the two. So that was kind of my goal, just to throw something out there, in that line of 4-gate whiskeys, but with some peat in there, a finishing.
That was fun.
Maturation with a different cast that you don't usually see on American whiskeys. You don't see many Pinot Noir type finishes. But
no, with American whiskeys now, things are changing because more and more people are playing around with different grains. Or not trying to recreate what Heaven Hill's doing or Buffalo Trace or something like that. So you're getting a lot of single malts and things coming out, and those take to other types of casks much better than bourbon does. And to be honest, rye takes, in my opinion, the less you have going on in the mash bill, the better it takes to other types of oak, of other types of spirits introduced. So that's why that 95.5 mash bill, for example, from MGP is, everyone finishes that rye because it's a simple whiskey, just molecularly and what the grains make up. So while it's good, it's a little one-dimensional, it's a little thin, you introduce another spirit to it, and it just melds so well. Yeah. Whereas you take something like bourbon, and even worse, you take a Tennessee bourbon. Tennessee bourbon has this overarching peanut character to it. They don't take to finishing barrels at all. But you're starting to see people out there. I mean, 291's playing around with it, and gosh, I mean, Stranahan's has been doing it for years, and it's people that are playing around with different types of grains and doing things differently than what we do in Kentucky are having a ton of success with different kinds of barrels. So much fun. It's just exciting. Spirits of French Lick is doing some great stuff up there, and they're using oats and all types of different shit in theirs, and it's so good.
So a little bit of background for those who aren't familiar. Spring Break obviously has kind of a cult following on Campbelltown. They do actually 3 different whiskeys. They do Springbank, and a lot of times you hear the Springbank Funk. It usually has a different funky profile than other scotches, and the Springbank is usually a lightly peated whiskey and a blend. They do rum cask finish, Madeira cask, and different things. Then they have the Hazelburn, which is triple distilled, like an Irish whiskey, that is not finished in any way or is not peated in any way, the Hazelburn. And they will do an Oloroso finish that a lot of people love, a 13 to 14-year-old Hazelburn. I'd recommend that.
Oloroso
also puts out. And then they have the Long Row. They do a Long Row peated, and then they have the Long Row Red. Long Row is their peated whiskey, their peated barley. I would encourage almost anyone, if you see a Long Row Red and you like peated whiskeys and you like red wine, pick it up. I mean,
Tim, can you get your hands on some of that at the office?
I think I might be able to.
Sometimes I think you guys have a better Scotch selection than bourbon.
Yes.
You guys are the only place in town that I ever find Edredauer 10, which is kind of when I just want a regular drinking Scotch, that's what I buy.
Man,
So for our
I like
single
it.
barrel snob and our bourbon 4-gate finished guy, I wanted to give you a little bit of a challenge on the peat front in a January tasting to give you a sample of the Scotch world.
Yeah,
I like it.
I dig it.
You know, I forget about Scotch sometimes, and I'll go a month or 2 months without tasting it, and then I'll suddenly get a craving, and I'll go a few days where I'll drink the Edredowers and the Glengoyne 10s and the really light, sherried stuff it's just kind of simple and sweet. After a couple of days of that, I start thinking, where's that Lefroy? Break it out. Where's that Abuna or something along those lines? Something with a little bigger and bolder. And then I want to go back to bourbon and rye, but.
And then you take the Abuna, not the Abuna, you take the Ugadal, and you get that peat and you get that sherry. And if you get those married right, to me, that's a perfect combination.
This is one of my favorite. And again, Wes gave me this bottle a couple of years ago when he was here in Kentucky, the Ugadal, and this is one of my favorite scotches I've had. Actually, I don't think you gave me this bottle. You gave me one, and then I had to go out and buy another one because I don't think that one lasted that long. This may be the same one. I know I've bought a second one, but you also gave me the first Abuna, and that's what, if there's anyone out there watching us now who's a bourbon guy or an American whiskey guy and is thinking, I don't like Scotch, I can't get into Scotch, go buy a taste of Aberlour's Abuna. It is,
oh my God,
it is a cast strength sherry bomb, and it is so good.
So stupid good.
It's around $100
reasonably priced. Yeah, I was going to say it's like 100, 120.
It's a little cheaper outside of Kentucky. I've seen it. We were up in Indianapolis, and it was like $88 or $87 up there. But in Kentucky, I think they just kind of price the hell out of Scotch because they want you to buy the local stuff. So
right.
So to give you a little ad there, Bill, for our whiskey club, we tasted 165 whiskeys last year. Our number one whiskey of the year was Edredour 2004 cast strength. Number one with a score of 93. Wow. Just off the chart, sherry bomb. Our number 9 was Aberlour Abuna Batch 57. And number 11 was Aberlour Abuna Batch 63. So 3 sherry bombs finished in the top 11 of that. And we also had quite a bit of peated whiskeys in there too. So,
Greg, Bill just spoke to me, but if you're drinking Lefroy anything, I'm skeptical. It's the only Lefroy I own. It's the 10-year cast strength. It is a peat monster, but if you ever just want to just beat yourself over the head with a little bit of peat, that's your thing.
Greg, you need to
prefer anything sherried, to be honest.
Greg, you need to try, if you can get a bottle of it. To me, the best Lefroy out there is the Triple Wood Cargis, which is a cast strength triple wood, which has ex-bourbon in it, Oloroso sherry, and other quarter cask. It's pretty amazing. If you want to give that a try.
It's called Aberlour Abuna, you're going to have to spell this for me, Wes. Bunaugh or something like that?
It's Bunadh.
That's it. And it's Aberlour. It comes in a tube. You'll see it. It's like a short tan tube with red lettering. It's
it used to be about $60, about 100 now. They do about 3 or 4 batches a year. Definitely a cherry bomb.
The catch, it's like 120, right? Like the proof.
Oh yeah,
it's a little lower than that. It's like 108 or something like that, I think, or 110.
Okay.
No, let's see. I think let's see.
I thought it was 120 proof, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, they're up there.
I just remember
58%. So 100.
I just remember when I first saw it, I was like, "Damn, this is high for a Scotch."
I wish I'd brought it in here. I didn't. I've really been on a Tomatin kick. Tomatin. So I don't know if it's Tomatin or Tomatin. But like just in terms of bang for your buck, like I don't necessarily think it's always the best Scotch out there, but you can get a 12-year, you can get a 15-year, and they're going to be like $60 tops until you get up into that like 18-year range. They're really good. They're light. They're not peated. This was in their Quattro series. I want to say bought this at your former employer's place there, Tim. But it's 12 years old, finished, aged in sherry casks. It's good stuff. I mean, it's their
I'm on this-
Pedro Jimenez sherry casks. So
I'm on this Ben Wright kick right now. I ended up buying a whole case of this thing because I liked it so much. It's one of the only other scotches that's triple distilled. I think Ocean Toshin's the other triple distilled scotch. And damn, it's finished in, I can't remember offhand. I want to say it was an Oloroso sherry, but yeah, it's finished in a sherry Oloroso barrel, and it's 12 years old. It's a Speyside, so a good balance. There's not a whole lot of peat. It's a good entry level scotch for someone who's.
I think you guys both had that Tomatin I had in the silver box, right? It was an 18 or 20 year, and it was finished in sherry barrels. It was a single barrel from a liquor barn chain here in Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
That was, I don't remember how much that was. That was dirt cheap, and I thought that was a phenomenal whiskey for probably like $60-$70.
You got me a bottle of it when it was on half price because it was in Kentucky.
Yeah. That's right. I forgot that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
I thought that was a great one. That's what got me into. I just saw it and I was like, wait, it's a cask strength. It's finished in sherry barrels, and it was like, I want to say 22 or 23 years old, something like that. Ridiculous.
Yeah. The Ardbeg committee release the 5% higher on ABV, so I think around 51, like Timothy was saying. Our group scored between the two. We scored the standard release an 88.5, and we gave a 91 to the committee release, and that doesn't always happen, but in that bottling, the extra proof gave a little bit more of those red fruits, were a little bit more dominant than the watered down version. So it's a little bit harder to find, a little bit more expensive, but the committee release was up there on par with the long row. But that long row is as I said, was if I saw a bottle on the shelf, I would buy it. No question.
I'm going to do a shout out to my other company, Foregate, with our new collector's coins coming out here. We just got them in. They're green for year 2. We released rye in year 2. Those are my Glencairn toppers for the night.
Are you gonna do a giveaway like you did with the last ones?
I don't know. You know what's funny is on the last ones, we did a contest in one of the local groups. I had said if any of you guys in the local group on Facebook win one of the coins, I think it was through Instagram or something like that. It was a random drawing, and we must have had 500 people in it. It was ridiculous. But if any of the guys in the local group win it, I'll either come to your house or you can come to my house. I'll do a private tasting for you and a buddy of any batch that Foregate has out on the market or has had out on the market. And one of the guys won it. We kind of kept going back and forth. We couldn't get the dates to line up. And then COVID hit. And literally last week, he called me up and he was like, "Hey, man, can we still do that tasting?" I was like, "Oh, God." And back is out on the market now. It's going to be a long Thursday night. So we literally just last week it was a year later, did the little tasting for that. So we'll see. We'll have to see on that one. I can't go a year with that hanging over my head again.
I hear you.
Just throw that anywhere.
Well, we have 2 more of these. I sent you 3 samples that are American bourbons that are all cask strength that we'll do 1 month, and also world whiskeys that are finished that our club hasn't even tasted yet. So I think we'll revisit these for those who like listening about some whiskeys they may not be familiar with.
Yeah.
And for our next video, before we do those, I have so at the end of every year, we started this last year. We get a little surplus in Modern Thirst, and we go out and we blow it on a nice expensive bottle, and I just divvy it up basically and send out samples to all of our writers. So we'll get Nick and Matt and Bill Scott on here, and we'll do a bigger one again with that. Matt's already got his because he happened to be in Louisville over New Year's. I'm going to mail your alls out here soon.
That's funny. You know who else is in Louisville?
But you haven't been to my house. Right.
Because you haven't invited me. Yeah,
That's
right.
true. So the wife just had surgery on her ankle.
I picked up my oldest whiskey ever today. My oldest whiskey purchase ever.
Which was?
Single Cask Nation put out a 46-year-old Invergordon single grain that they, I think, had 150 bottles of. That's how much was in the cask. 46-year-old Invergordon, distilled in 1974.
My God. That's something.
I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on that, and I'm sure our readers would love to read that on a certain website.
Yeah.
Whew, what was in that one? What was my first? Don't even remember. That was good. I had another glass sitting over here with something in it that was really tasty, and I don't remember what it was. That must have been the Tomatin, because it wasn't peated. That's what it was. Good stuff. You guys have any guesses of what I purchased for us, knowing that it's an American whiskey?
I do.
What's that?
I'm guessing the Barrel Bourbon 15-year-old.
Tim, you got a guess?
Old Carter.
Interesting. Well, we're going to do it blind, so I'm not going to tell you beforehand. But we're going to let everybody taste it and get those sent out soon. I'll have to find something else to throw in there, too, so we can talk about more than one thing while we're on that call.
Just based off the price, I know that price range fluctuates. When I saw the receipt you put out there, I started thinking, what could this be?
Mm-hmm.
It was between $2 and $3 bills.
Yeah,
bottle at retail.
It was like $2.46.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, something like that. And I won't tell you whether or not I had a discount on that to get it to that. Whether it was on a discount to get it to that.
Where'd you get it at?
I'm not going to tell you that either. I didn't get it at your employer. I don't even know if I knew you were at your new employer at the time.
You can't tell Timothy that because he'll track down where it was.
Okay, well.
I went out to a few different places and I picked something that I really wanted to try that I'd heard good things about, but I hadn't had yet. So, and I still haven't tried it myself.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we're gonna try it for the first time together.
Right.
Some of you guys have probably tried it, so I don't know. Anyway, awesome, good tasting, Wes. This was fun. Guys, got anything to add?
I'm definitely looking forward to diving into the rest of these.
Yeah,
I would encourage. The only thing I have to add is I would just encourage people to go down the Scotch road a little bit more. You don't have to jump in on the peat wagon. There's plenty of Highlands, Lowlands, and Speyside Scotches that are all just really, really phenomenal and have little to no peat in them at all. I would say this is just from the stuff I've learned. The biggest misconception is that all Scotch is peated, and I feel like it's just the regions that are doing peat are this as far as on the whole scale of where you're getting peated Scotches from. So
right.
that would be.
I agree.
I agree, Timothy. Most people's introduction, they think every Scotch is Lafroig, and if that's your first introduction, you may be tainted a little bit.
Right.
Although Lafroig is great, but the majority of the Scotches out there are in no way peated, and there's a lot of variety. So if anyone wants to, find my email on our Modern Thirst site and send me some questions about telling me what you like, I can give you some suggestions.
I would say to kind of further up Tim's point, you don't really appreciate whiskey if you only drink bourbon and rye.
Yep.
They are my favorite whiskeys. And now you don't have to have a collection of it. You don't have to go out there and sip it every night or anything like that. But if you can't drink a something produced in Ireland or Canada or Scotland that's made with care and made with a great deal of skill, you can at least appreciate it, then you don't really love whiskey. And here's another thing. People doing it in Scotland, they're better at it than we are in America. They've been doing it for centuries. We've been doing it for like 150 years. They've been doing it for like 400 years.
Way
They
longer.
know what they're doing. They're not making a bad product. Trust me. If they were making a bad product, it wouldn't be a thing. But there's a reason the rest of the world loves Scotch, and they're only just discovering American whiskey. I still love bourbon and rye more than anything else, but you got to appreciate other tastes. It makes you appreciate the nuances in American whiskey more to appreciate other whiskeys and what they have going for them.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that at all. That's spot on.
Awesome. Well,
gentlemen,
we are, where are we here? 46 minutes into the, how about a recommendation spin-off from a Glenfiddich 15? Tim, weren't you drinking Glenfiddich?
I was drinking Glenfiddich 15, actually.
I think the Glenfiddich 15 is a bourbon barrel finish, right?
It is.
I think that's the one I have, and I don't have the 14, right?
And the 14 is a cognac finish? Yeah, the 14 is a cognac finish.
Then I have the 15, and that's actually new oak and bourbon barrels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's Calvin Cooperage new barrels.
If
you like the Glenfiddich 15, I know that Balvenie, and it's a little polarizing, but Balvenie came out with a 12-year-old Taste of Oak, which was basically their Scotch aged in ex-bourbon barrels, then put into fresh Kelvin barrels, which gives it a little bit more of a bourbon-esque wood note to it. So if you like the Glenfiddich, so the 15 I see, Greg, is a Solera. You're saying, I think that that may be something you want to go down the path of. I really like the Balvenie single barrel, the 12-year-old single barrel. I think it's down in the path of a Scotch drinker. Another a bourbon drinker, I should say. Another bourbon drinker intro Scotch is the Balvenie 14-year-old Caribbean rum cask. I think it has a lot of notes that a bourbon drinker likes, and is kind of a gateway whiskey for someone who likes the 15-year-old Solera, and maybe consider giving that a try or try it at a bar.
Greg says the 14 is the one that's a mix of ex-bourbon and the new oak. I have that one. I think the 18 or 19, and then the 26 year are the Glenfiddichs that I have. And I think the 14 is I like a lot more than I think it's 18. Next one that I have. But the 14 I really like. I think that's a really good whiskey. And if you like bourbon, the 14 is a good way to step into that, because it, like Wes was saying, using that new charred oak barrel for half of it, blended in with a used bourbon barrel, it definitely gives you some of those notes you're familiar with in American whiskey. But as far as a step up from the Glenfiddich 15, I have to leave that to my esteemed World Whiskeys writers, because I am not experienced enough in Scotch to go that far into it.
All right.
Greg likes the 14 and 15 better than the 18. I haven't had the 15 to my knowledge, but I do agree I like the 14 more than I haven't. Honestly, I don't think I've opened the 26 yet. I was going to wait for Wes to come in, and then the stupid COVID thing hit. And
yeah,
Want to drink that 26?
maybe
Definitely
Tim and
wanna
I'll
drink
just
that
kill it
26.
one night before Wes gets here. That's a pricey bottle, so I'm trying to wait for a reason to open it. But what the hell? Maybe we'll just do it on a Wednesday. What do I care?
Just because it's Wednesday.
Right. So, all right, guys. This was fun. This was fun. I can't wait to do the next two sets of samples that Wes sent out to us. We will we'll get those on the calendar, and we're also going to do the end of the year Modern Thirst American whiskey. It is an American whiskey of some sort, and we'll get that on the calendar. If you like us, please subscribe. If you're watching us on repeat or on recorded, whatever you call it, on YouTube, like and subscribe on YouTube. Check us out at ModernThirst.com. Where can we find you, Wes?
you can find me on Modern Thirst, and that's the easiest way. You can find my address there, and I'm also on Instagram at Wes_modern_thirst.com or .thirst.
And Tim?
You can find me at the good old Instagram at Single Barrel Snob, or you can find me on the new Clubhouse app, Single Barrel Snob with no vowels. Come check me out, doing new things over there. It's pretty interesting. And of course, here on the lovely ModernThirst.com.
And Tim does a really fun Monday Suck live video on Instagram with Hood Sommelier.
Hood Sommelier every Monday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It goes for 2 hours. Do an hour on my channel. Then we go over to Hood Somms and do an hour over there. And we talk about whiskey and our week and bullshit and fuckery and everything that's going on in life.
And he was just here in Louisville this past weekend. My wife just had ankle surgery, so I'm kind of playing nursemaid and babysitter to the kids. So I couldn't really meet up with him, but he's going to come back here sometime in the spring. We're going to make sure we all get together.
Yes,
have a good old time. But check that out. That's really fun. I get to it as often as I can, but generally I'm old, so around 10 o'clock I'm going to sleep, and Tim's just really getting his head of steam going around 10. So anyway, you can catch me at it's modern_thirst at Twitter. Modern Thirst we're on Instagram, Twitter, you name it, and then Bill Straub everywhere. You just look for me on all the social medias out there, social interwebs, and you can email me directly at bill@modernthirst.com. So thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a great week, and cheers.
Cheers, dudes.